All right, here's a deep question, Pops. What do you want to be remembered for?
Tough question. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't think about myself that much of what I want to be remembered for. I just hope that people remember that I did the best I got. I'm out here trying. I'm hoping I don't take too much advantage of people. I can't say that I've always been that, but I certainly have tried to be a nice guy and do what I can to help further the cause of life and do good. So I hope that that's what they remember, and that we should laugh through it. There's a joy that I was happy, that we were happy, happy to be around, happy to do stuff, that kind of thing.
Welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I've got an incredible man, a great friend, mentor, my father, Donald Kuehlhorn. Pops, welcome to the show.
That would be me, and thanks very much for the invite and for the conversation.
What I love about this is you kind of inspired some of this as far as podcasting goes. I remember being, I don't know how old I was, 7 or 8. You were bringing me on to radio plays.
Yeah, down in the basement with their old 4-track.
Yeah, the basement of the college. Yeah. That was pretty funny. It's interesting to hear that little voice these days.
I wish I had it queued up. I think I got one of my friends who was also in that had found a lot of tapes of shows. And I do have one of you and Sarah. Too bad I don't have it queued up. We could play that little bad boy for you.
Yeah, it's all right. We can do it later. Pops, I open the show just about every time asking, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Chicago. I've been born and bred and raised in Chicago, and I have lived I've never gone into the suburbs of Chicago to live. In my adult life, I've moved several times only to come back to Chicago. And I've been a Chicago boy. Grew up on the Green Hornet.
Yeah.
And taking L's and public trans all over the place. Wouldn't allow anybody to do it today, but back in the 50s, easy enough.
Yeah. When did you have that freedom? Like, I know you had brothers. Give me a little bit more detail. What was it like growing up? I mean, were you taking the L and jumping around when you were 12?
Probably younger than that. We lived in Rogers Park area, which is, it's the near north side. It's due north. It was about 5 miles from the lake. We could ride bikes to the lake, which we did often. And the public trans was there. We'd jump on a bus, go down to Bryn Mawr Station, jump on the L, and at the time it was the State Street line. It's now, I believe, the Red Line. But we'd go downtown. Now, my brother and I, your Uncle John, used to go down and take bank deposits for my grandfather. and we'd go down and pick it up at his office and walk over to the Amalgamated Bank, which is no longer there, of course, and deposit it. And then we would just fool around downtown and then get on back on the State Street and ride it back home, get back into the bus and take the bus up to Rogers Park.
Right. Well,
And so
your grandfather, you were taking deposits for your grandfather.
Correct.
My great-grandfather?
My grandfather and my mother's father, who was a practicing osteopathic physician. And he practiced until he slipped on ice at age 98, but he was always working. But back then, he was in his office. He would drive around first, do house calls until noon. And by that time, we were downtown, met him at his office. And then we got this little envelope and boom, 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 off we went to the bank, deposited, dropped it back with him.
Yeah.
And then whatever transpired, it usually just kind of roaming around downtown. It's a different time now. I mean, that was in the 50s, and it's a completely different time now. You can't do that now.
Yeah, I've no doubt. But what I heard in that is that, Kuehlhorns, we come from a lineage of long living people.
Oh, yeah. My grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side lived, my grandfather to 99, my grandmother to 100. She was younger than my grandfather, but she went all the way up there. My grandfather held his mental state. My grandmother diminished along the way. My mother died early. She passed from breast cancer, and that was it wasn't in the curable state that it is today. The medicine today, obviously, is far more advanced than that was in the 60s. And there was still, you had what she had to do to get it done, and unfortunately it didn't work. My father was 99 and in full control of his capacities and his motor skills. He was getting old, and I can say that when you're getting old. It's there.
Yeah.
But Uncle Bert, he turns 80 on March 6th, just around the corner. So we do have a lot of old people in our family, which is what we're looking forward to.
My vision of living to a healthy 108 is
it certainly is
founded. Like there's some gene pool.
The gene pool says that we can make it all the way up there. I was just in Nova Scotia, and I didn't look at the dates for the founder of the McGregor side, who landed in Nova Scotia, Pleasant Bay, but he was well into it in 1850s. So the gene pool is certainly positive in the sense of growing older.
Hardy, tenacious Kuehlhorns.
Refuse to give up.
Yeah. There's some truth to that. And on that, that's actually a good segue. One of the reasons for listeners to bring you on here, Dad, is have a conversation just because I think it's hilarious and fun. It also gives us a little bit of documentation. This is something that maybe Taj watches 10 years from now, or as I have children around, like this is going to be archived.
Exactly.
Right? It could be a cool thing to watch us banter back and forth.
My father wrote many diaries, some conflicting information in them. I never did sit down with them and a microphone and do a chat. It never occurred to me, I think, because I had all these diaries that he had and I had personal connection with him. But it would have been something most interesting for me to reflect on, and also to pass on to you and Taj, and whoever comes behind, just to know. When I went to Nova Scotia to kind of chase down the lineage of my mother's side, it's something that I had wasn't interested in before. Now there's an interest. It's an interesting thing to go back and see and meet some of the people my age who were part of the family but came from different lines of the same grandfather or great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
So this is cool.
Yeah. That is interesting. All right. So for listeners, we're going to tee up a reflection of a few backpacking trips that you took me on. I've got some pointed questions, and I'm just interested to see kind of what bubbles up in our conversation. But for you, Dad, there's conversations on this podcast that land in 3 buckets, and I think we might hit all 3 of them in some form, but it's community connection, better business, and living longer. So we've already kind of been hinting on living longer and just looking at genes and that kind of stuff. But let's open this up with opening questions. So this is up in Michigan. I'm, I think, 11 when we go on the first year's trip. Maybe it's 10. But I'm interested, like, where did you get the idea? Why did you choose a 9-mile hike in and out to start? And from what you just shared, like running around Chicago, like, did you have a wilderness background? Had you done this before?
Bottom line, no. A lot of the things that I do are really off the cuff. Really, I don't do a lot of preparation. I do have a great preparation story for our Hawaii trip, but as far as that is concerned, truthfully, I can't tell you how I do that. I know that one day I had been driving down Highway 131, going to Petoskey, and I saw the sign for the Devil's Hill overlook, and I knew it's the Big Wheel. It's the Big Wheel overlook. Anyhow, when you're hauling logs in northern Michigan and back in the 1800s, you had these big wheels. They were 2-wheeled contraptions. The wheels were 6 feet in circumference or in diameter, and you'd load a big log onto it, and then your horse could pull it out, or your ox or whatever could pull it out quite easily. But when you get to this hill, if you didn't know how to stop it, the log would roll over you at the end of the dip. It was quite a steep hill. So I've seen the sign, and I thought, well, I know that at the end of that, you can camp. So I just said, why don't we go do this? I had no idea how long it was.
Just put 2 and 2 together.
I was pretty much ill-prepared the entire time. I put it all together, and I didn't realize that when we got to the end of it, it was wilderness camping. You just plunked down on some grass, and there you were. There wasn't even cutouts for
you didn't realize this?
Why should I?
Okay, so let's put some context on this. Oh my gosh. This is so rich. So we did this trip 3 times. We did this trip 3 times. I think the first time I was 11. Do you remember? I mean,
10 or 11.
It doesn't really matter. I was
you
little.
And you went off
and we go
and found a beaver dam. And I said, no, the beaver dam's not there. No, that was a second trip. You wanted to see the beaver dam. And I said, well, it's further on. You said, no, it's right over here. And I said, no, it's further on. So we went further on, and you're right. It was back over there. But
oh my gosh. So for the listeners, just to put this in context, I mean, this is a 9-mile hike in. And it's in northern Michigan, so it's not mountainous, but it is hilly. It's not just flat road. It's single track trail.
Yep.
Black dirt, deciduous forest, 9 miles in. I mean, that took us 5-6 hours. I'm 10 or 11. This first year, I'm literally with my school backpack and I have my sleeping bag holding in my hands for 9 miles. I wouldn't do that today.
Well, we got there.
And Dad, you had an external frame orange backpack. I can remember seeing that backpack so well. I can't remember if that's the year that we brought eggs and they cracked over everything inside the backpack.
I believe that was the first one, yes. And then coming back, of course, we took a beaten path, a little path, almost like a cow path. It was 2 feet wide, if that we walked this entire route. And then when we came back, we got lost because we took a different, the other route. We crossed over the creek, and then we took the other route back, which all of a sudden, into it, maybe a mile or two, it disappeared. So once again, I'm wandering around. I know that I'll find something someday. And sure enough, we got back. I knew where the river should have been, so I finally deadheaded into the river area, and we picked up a path that maybe we missed, or I missed, on the coming out, and that took us back to where we started. Wasn't that the one?
I
think the one we dumped our packs when we crossed the road, and then we walked on to pick up the car to come back and pick up the packs. Yeah, well, that's preparedness for you.
Yeah. Well, the first 2 years we didn't make it. I mean, I think every year we made it on that first day hike. Like, we were fresh, we're all amped up, freaking clueless, I have no idea what's going on, and walk in and find the camp. And you're right, it's just a pit toilet, and maybe there was one of those old pumps, right, to pull water, or we just pulled it out of the creek there. But that first year, I do recall that we ditched our bags, got to the car, drove back, and like after every event, I remember the first meal, like sitting down at a restaurant after all of that, and having a good meal. The second year was the year that it rained.
Oh, and you had your buddy then.
And I watched you. Watched you go hypothermic. Yeah, the first year was just you and I. The second year I brought a buddy. Third year I brought a buddy. The second year, buddy and I were in little pup A-frame tents. Like, talk about 1970s Salvation Army discount aisle tent. And it is downpouring.
And
all
you
night
were,
long.
I moved you up to high ground, you and your buddy, and then I gave you my wool.
Yeah, into the dry tent.
I gave you my wool sweater, because wool, even when wet, will keep. And I ended up in the water. And I can remember trying to cook eggs, and I couldn't stop shaking. It was just...
Yeah.
My goodness. And
I mean, I give you kudos on a couple of things. And then, on one hand, like, what an insane experience. But the fact that you were trying to cook food over our 1970s Coleman one burner, which I still have here in the shop. It's a cool little stove. And you're not able to keep the frying pan on top because you're shaking so bad. And yet you have the clearance or the clarity of like turning off the stove, putting the fry pan down, grabbing a candy bar and being like, boys, we got to walk.
Right.
And I just remember leaving, exiting, like we were on the move, we were out of here. And that, like, I think about that often. I'm like, wow, like in that moment, there's this clarity of like, we just have to move. Let's go. And there wasn't any hesitation. I think if there was, like, that scenario could have gotten
been
worse.
trouble. It was, I knew that I still had my brains about me, and I was trying to do that. And then I realized that I was shaking so much that we needed to walk so I could warm up. And the idea of me just exercising and getting warm would help our situation a whole bunch. And we could always come back and pick this stuff up, because I knew that on the other side of maybe a quarter mile out was Route 66. See, doing this whole thing, I knew it was safe. As crackpot as it might sound, I knew there was a road a quarter mile away from the campground, Route 66, that we could walk out to. Yeah. And that was a busy enough route to get us to East Jordan or back into Mansalona or something. But the walk was the key. The whole idea was the walk. And then that particular time, it was just cold. And it was time. We had to start moving so that I could get warm. Or else you guys, I remember didn't I tell you, if anything happens to us, you walk out, you just keep walking. And so just so we all knew where we were, because you never know what happens. Somebody could slip, break a leg or whatever. But we knew it was a safe environment to be in, with still some struggles.
That's kind of like the funny joke almost, is that we could have just driven and car camped at that same campground. But you're right, the walk, I mean, that was the point, and that almost reflects like life's journey. Like you're going to walk, and you can enjoy it, you can not enjoy it, you can make it easy, you can not make it easy. Like, it's what's interesting. The other irony to it is, I remember that first year, and I just remember you being bent on bringing eggs for breakfast. And that first year we didn't pack the eggs right, so they cracked inside the bag. The second year, you got the Salvation Army style, like, plastic egg container, and they made it, but then we were hypothermic and we couldn't fry them up.
Yeah, it was all... The third year was good. We had a good third year.
The third year was...
We had enough practice.
Sweet. Yeah. Yes, we did. And I think, if there's something that, I mean, there's so much out of those trips that last with me from that time period. Certainly there's the component of attempt, not make it. Attempt, not make it. Attempt and make it. And that string together, like, we kept learning. And that has probably fueled like this level of tenacity and boldness. Like, I'm not afraid of not making it the first time. And it's in part because of these experiences. Like, I know that I'll be able to get a meal, shower, go back, try it again.
Well, the bottom line for me was I knew it was safe. As crazy as I am in preparation, or not, a lack of preparation, what I knew was that we were always able to walk out at any time. We could have turned around. If things went south, as they did, we were still, not me was still safe, you were still safe, and your buddy were still safe. Me and safety are paramount, yes. I'd really like to have me safe. But I don't really think of me as much as I was thinking, if we get into trouble there, can you safely get out? And the answer was yes. There were, three crossroads that we had to cross. They weren't busy by any stretch, but they were roads that you could have walked out to a busy road. We had certainly food enough.
Which I think we did that second year. I think we did walk out the road.
Yeah, we had to get that. But those are the things that once I know it's safe, we're on our way. We'll figure out what happens in order to get there, rather than plan. It's just so much more fun to kind of ad lib. Here we go.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all that. I look back on those experiences fondly. In our own way, I've mimicked some of that as far as having an annual trip with my son Taj. And this year will be our third year going to VCon, which is a completely different style than backpacking unprepared through the wilderness. But still yet similar in the sense that it does anchor these very intentional experiences, and we get to learn, we get to play, we get to fail, we get to learn, we get to play, we get to keep going, keep moving. Because there is no failure. I mean, that word I used intentionally, but I don't believe in that word per se because of the learning that comes with it.
So long as you learn. I mean, there are some people who do stuff and never learn. We did learn. We knew what we needed to do.
Yeah. Next year I had a legit backpack. The year after that, another one. I mean, that honestly, those experiences, as I went into finishing high school, my last year of high school, I got really disheartened in education, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't drawn anywhere. I was just like spinning, floating. And, bless mom's heart for just booting me out of the house and kind of kicking me down the hill. But that ultimately got me to where I could find experiential and outdoor education. And because of that foundation that you helped put together, like I had this already love of the wilderness and this little bit of an experience to know that I didn't know much. And that fueled, like that all just anchored and locked. And I was like, oh, sweet. Now I can really learn how to do this correctly. And then, be able to go on really cool trips with you in later, more mature years and really do it right, like send it. And that was so fun, but that definitely fueled a lot of the passion that I had for experiential education and getting people out into the wilderness. It's kind of cool.
Well, it was, it certainly matured into something. And however I didn't, I'm still, we want to go somewhere? Let's go. Rather than study stuff and take the detail. I'm not a detail guy. I'm an overview guy. Well, we're going to go walk? Yeah. Where? Yeah. Here? Bye. Let's go. And away we go. And I'll take what I get when I get there.
So let me ask you this, and just stringing together a connection. Is this similar, if not the same, to just getting on the L and kicking it around downtown all day and cruising back?
Yeah, knowing, again, my dog is here, and sometimes she likes to bite into things, which we don't like her to bite into. It is the adventure with the knowledge. Now, every time I do something, 99% of the time, I'll say, I can't say 100, but 99% of the time, I know that the outcome is going to be safe. I mean, I don't jump off bungee cord bridges. I don't do stuff that there's a chance of me getting bodily harm if somebody else messes up. I'm reliant on my knowledge and reliant on my capabilities. So if I'm getting on the L, I know how to get home. I could walk home without any trouble. It would have been a matter of 12 or 14 miles, but walking's not difficult. You just start one foot in front of the other and away you go. So even at the tender age of 10 or 11, when I was on the L's and stuff, I knew where I was, and I knew that it was safe, and I knew I didn't need any of that. I could walk home. So I was safe in that regard. So that's where I would go. And so going downtown, if something happened, well, I'll walk home. Not that far.
What I can appreciate about that, I have a very similar mindset as far as being able to figure anything out, any kind of obstacle. Like, it's very similar. And I've even thought of like almost doomsday types of stuff. Like if cell phone, if everything went down, like my plan years ago, I don't know if it'll be the same anymore because of my local family, but my plan years ago was just to walk back home. I was like, yeah, I'll just walk home. Like, I'll navigate
Not
fine.
that far. Did I tell you about my plan for
Yeah.
the Russian invasion in 1959, 1960, somewhere around there? I'm pretty sure I have, but
No,
I'll share it
totally.
with you again. I knew that this was the height of the Cold War. There was saber rattling all over the place. Oh, it was 59 because the White Sox won the pennant. And so at midnight in September-ish, August-ish, back when there was a sane amount of baseball games, they fired off the air raid sirens when the White Sox won the pennant. I remember waking up and hearing it and thinking, all right, the Ruskies are coming. There's planes. They're going to jump out of the airplanes and parachute into my backyard, climb in through my bedroom window. Too bad. I'm going to sleep. The next day, when I found out that, no, it was just a false alarm, somebody had fired off the things, I said, well, that's it. I am going to have an escape plan. And that plan was to go to Midway Field, hijack an airplane, and fly north to possibly Traverse City. At the time, it was Wisconsin because that was what I knew. But I have fulfilled that. I am was a private pilot, still am technically. I just haven't flown in 30 years. But I learned how to fly an airplane so that I could hot wire it and scoot north out of the blast zone, if you will.
Amazing.
So it's a little faster than walking.
Yeah. Good plan. My more recent doomsday plan is just to break into one of these second homes and just enjoy the meals for whatever.
You're in a place that no one cares to bomb. You know, they might bomb Denver, but
True.
You're just so far away from anywhere right now that I'm coming to visit you. I'll fly in. The airport will still be open.
Yes. That's, in theory. Well, it's funny, I think every generation thinks about some version of doomsday. And I think that is just a almost human conditioned fear. But what I've sensed and what I've gleaned in studying history is that everything's happened before, just some things haven't happened in our lifetime. So it almost seems like a shock and a surprise, and yet it's really not if you scope out hundreds of years and see the rhythm, see the pattern. We could look at that economics, we can see cycles in finance, we can see cycles in politics, all that stuff. Just hasn't happened in our lifetime.
And rightly so, but it
has happened.
The potential for it to happen again, because people, in my estimation, get complacent. They'll fight and fight and fight, and all of a sudden they reach the end of the fight and a modicum of peace happens. And then there's a generation who doesn't know the fighting, and they think, well, this is the norm. And then they become complacent, and maybe their generation becomes complacent, and then there's an upstart in there. who says, I've got an opportunity to disrupt the world. And they go about disrupting the world, and then the fight begins again. So, yeah, I see the cycle. Personally, I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, here's a deep question, Pops. What do you want to be remembered for?
Tough question. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't think about myself that much of what I want to be remembered for. I just hope that people remember that I did the best I got. I'm out here trying. I'm hoping I don't take too much advantage of people. I can't say that I've always been that, but I certainly have tried to be a nice guy and do what I can to help further the cause of life and do good. So I hope that that's what they remember, and that we should laugh through it. There's a joy that I was happy, that we were happy, happy to be around, happy to do stuff, that kind of thing. I don't have any monuments. No monuments. Let's not put up a monument. Let's just say he was happy. Let's have a shot of Jameson in his honor and move on and go for a hike.
Beautiful. So I'll cancel the bronze sculpture order that I've got in play then.
Exactly. Save that bronze for somebody else.
Oh, Pops, I really had fun in this conversation.
It was a good one. I want to come back sometime when you have a downtime or in between. We got plenty of walks to talk about. We got the walk over the mountains. We got Hawaii. Oh boy, do I! I was practicing Hawaii. I was practicing all the different things that happened to us on the Hawaii trip. That was a good trip. That was a standout trip.
Let's tee that up. Let's tee that up for another conversation. We'll make that happen.
When you get all those emails and letters coming in, get your dad back on. We want to hear about Hawaii. I'm ready.
Pops, I love you. Thank you for being my dad. It was fun adventures. And we'll tee up Hawaii. So for the listeners, stay tuned. We'll bring Don Kuehlhorn back for sure.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff.
Thanks for inviting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you're here. We'll close up this conversation and we'll talk to you soon.
Love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. We count on your subscriptions, your likes, your shares, and I encourage you to do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, lower right-hand button. If you're on audio, download this, share it, and we look forward to having you on the next one.